Good morning. I am Bright Sowu, and I'll be speaking on the topic, quote, why Africans dissatisfied with democracy, think corruption, end of quote. Now, I did not craft this title. It's actually the title of an article that appeared in the Washington Post of November 19, 2021. Now, the arguments made by the authors are very similar to discussions we had last week in class, particularly in the class on global threats to democracy, Professor Larry Diamond's class. Now, if you remember the slide in there talking about the resisting effects of apex corruption on democratic values, where we had graphed some corruption index on public trust in institutions of democracy index. The key argument all of this make, and I'm going to rephrase it for my presentation, is that there's a positive correlation between anti-corruption and democracy. What that means is that where the government is seen to be fighting corruption, seen and actually fighting corruption as well, there is bound to be trust in the public institutions of state, most of which are democratic institutions, and therefore there's bound to be some trust in the ideals of democracy. That's the general idea. Because then that will deliver the social goods, both tangible and intangible, that people want or people need. Malik said last week that people do not eat democracy. He is right. They eat the amenities that democracy or democratic institutions actually deliver. And that's truism. I work in the anti-corruption field. I work for the Office of the Special Prosecutor in Ghana. I also volunteer for the Daakye Youth platform, teaching a course on democracy and good governance. The common thing to both positions is that I work a lot in corruption prevention. Now, I take a somewhat demographic perspective to my approach in fighting corruption. For people of my generation and older, I believe what is needed is deterrence, prosecutions, sanctions, recovery. But for young people, I take a different approach. I believe a lot in investing in anti-corruption education. My boss often says to me that corruption begins where values collapse. Some 5 years ago, I was driving with a friend who was supposed to drop his 5-year-old daughter at a birthday party. And then as we drove, we were accosted by a policeman who said we're driving beyond the speed limit. Something I'm sure you've all experienced every now and then. And then we were arguing with this policeman. After a while, the 5-year-old girl late for a birthday party screamed from the back, "Just give him 5 cedis and let's go." Now, 5 cedis is the equivalent of something like 50 cents, a very small amount. But when we heard that, all the adults were embarrassed. The policeman just waved us on. He was embarrassed as well. Now imagine that 5-year-old girl had said, "Don't bribe the police officer." I think the effect would have been the same. Policeman would still wave us on, but would have been proud of what she said. So how does society teach a young girl to be corrupt, to believe in bribing a police officer and getting her way? This is why I believe in the concept of anti-corruption education for young people. And I've been leading the Youth Against Corruption program of my office for the last 3 years. We've been speaking to youth right from elementary school all the way to tertiary institutions. The idea is not to tell them what to do or to preach democracy. We simply guide them to appreciate the nexus between corruption and underdevelopment and the democratic values that we want them to pick up. Transparency, participation, accountability. Because we have learned that with Gen Z, you cannot tell them to do what to do. You let them appreciate that it's in their interest to do these things. And that's the way to go to deal and go to talk to them. Now, the program has been so successful, our Minister of Education has accepted that we draw an anti-corruption curriculum to be taught from schools, right from elementary school all the way to tertiary institutions. And that's how big the program has been. That's something we are fervently working on. Last week, Bilal said something in class. He's asked whether the people in developing countries know what democracy is, particularly know what democracy requires of them. And the key thing we do when we facilitate these anti-corruption sessions is to help young people to embrace their agency in the anti-corruption fight. It takes a lot of work. The system is not automatic. You have to work to guarantee that the democracy delivers the social goods that you want. And that's very essential to what we preach about when we speak to them. Last week again, Lillian said we need to make democracy sexy. I say we need to make anti-corruption sexy as well. Cool and sexy for young people. And that's something we need to invest in all the countries we come from. If democracy will stand, it has to be anchored on anti-corruption. That's my submission to you. I'd like to end with the saying that It is better, far better, to build strong children than to repair broken men. I'm going to say it again. It is better to build strong children than to repair broken men and women. Thank you very much.